I want to talk to you guys today about my new camera. It's the Sony a7 III full frame mirrorless camera. I love this camera. It's I got it a couple of weeks ago, and I've been shooting with it almost every day, and I'm just really enjoying it. This is my third Sony camera. My first one was the a6000, and then I skipped the a6300 and went to the a6500. I love both of those cameras, and I had kind of convinced myself that I was going to stay with the APS-C format, and so I bought mostly APS-C lenses, and I'm still going to use my a6500, I'm sure, as a backup camera and video and things like that. But after having used this camera for 2 weeks, it's probably going to be the camera that's in my hand most of the time. It's just an amazing camera. It's let me look at my stats here. It's a 24.2 megapixel sensor, full frame sensor. It's back illuminated. That's something I had to look up and find out what that was about, what that meant. And basically, what it is your original sensors. What they would do is they would build the silicone base, and then they would put all the wiring on top of that, and then they would put it in the camera, and the wiring would be on top of the sensor. So the light had to go through the wiring to get to the actual sensor, and you lost a certain amount of light for that. And so what Sony has done is they adopted this backlit sensor, which what happens is they build the silicone sensor, they put the wiring on, and then they flip it over so that the side that's facing the image is the part that doesn't have any wiring on it. Now that seems like a no-brainer, but the reason they hadn't done that before is because it was incredibly expensive to make these sensors, and they found a way to make it cheaper so that they can put it in their cameras, and it just allows this camera to have amazing low light capabilities that I've never had a camera that could shoot like this before. I'm shooting ISOs in the 10,000 range and still getting very usable images. So it's pretty neat. It has a ISO sensitivity of I think it's the native sensitivity is 100 to 51,200, and it can be expanded from 50 to 204,800, and that's for stills for the expansion. It has a hybrid fast autofocus. It has 693 phase detection points on the camera, and has 425 contrast autofocus points. This makes this camera incredibly good at catching autofocus. Okay, it does a really good job of that. It has high speed continuous shooting of 10 frames per second. And in that 10 frames per second, it has tracking autofocus and auto exposure. It has 5-axis image stabilization inside the camera, which is really cool. So if you have lenses, if you're shooting with legacy lenses or lenses that don't have image stabilization, you have it in the camera. Okay, and that's a thing we're all beginning to depend on a lot more. I have to say, I used to really preach using tripods all the time, and whenever you're taking photos to get your best image, but I have to say I rarely use tripods anymore. The only time I'll use a tripod is when the light is so dim and I don't want to jack up my ISO and I want to keep it as clean an image as possible. Then I will put my camera on a tripod, but other than that, most of the time I don't put it on a tripod. This image is capable of 4K HDR movies, which is a great feature for people who are really into video. I have to say that doesn't mean a lot to me because I don't do a lot of video. Maybe down in the future I will. These are the only kind of videos I really do most of the time, and I'm not even shooting this on a really high resolution. It's 1080p, but it's on a Canon T5i. So it's, I'm not even shooting on a Sony. Sorry, Sony. But it was my wife's camera, but she's inherited my a6500 since I bought this camera. It has a battery life. I mean, it has this new battery in it that is incredible. Let me show you something. This is the new battery. Go over here and get one of my other batteries. Okay, so this is the difference between the battery that I used to use in the a6500 and was in the A7s and the new battery. So you can see that's quite a difference in size, and it's quite a difference in capacity. This battery give you like 250 to 300 shots. This battery, using the viewfinder only, will give you like 610 shots, and it's rated at 710 shots if you use the LCD only. So this is really a breakthrough, because I was always, whenever I would go anywhere, I would always carry at least 4 or 5 batteries with me, especially if you're going to do a wedding or something like that. I feel perfectly safe of course, you're always going to bring an extra battery if you're doing something like a wedding, but I feel perfectly safe bringing this battery and 1 extra battery, and I know I will not run out of battery power at that wedding. Let's see, what else do I have here? You know, this is an award-winning camera. It's I saw some things on this is on Sony's website, but it won ELSA award. It won best product award for 2018. It's and another award that I can't read right now because I got this blown up. But it's an award-winning camera. And it outshines a lot of the more cameras that are much more expensive than this camera, which is one of the prime reasons I just couldn't resist this camera was the price. I mean, I started looking at the stats. I started watching all the reviews. And I watched people comparing this camera to Canon and Nikon and even the other Sony cameras, and realized I just couldn't let this one go by. I mean, I'm not attracted by 50 megapixel cameras, but I am attracted by a camera like this, a 24 megapixels that does all the things it does, and it does them incredibly well. Let me see what else I got here for you. You know, all these things I've talked about so far are really just the highlights of this camera, but it does so much more than I've talked about. It has so many features. It has, I think it's 12 customizable buttons on the camera. They're all over the place. They're on the top, you know, they're on the back, you know, and it's really, you can really customize this camera to fit your shooting needs perfectly. The grip, some people complain a little bit about the grip, and I've seen some people put some kind of grip on the bottom. It's about this far out, and they say that it helps their pinky stay on, but I have small hands, so it doesn't really bother me, and this finger is always up here, so really I only need enough grip for 3 fingers, because I hold the camera with those 3 fingers usually, and also with my other hand underneath the camera, that's good basic camera practice to do, is to hold your hand underneath the lens and to help support it. The image quality in this camera is amazing. It's really good image quality, and like I said, really high ISO, but you bring that high ISO down to, you know, 100 ISO, and the images are just really clean and really nice. What else? Oh, it has things like eye autofocus, which all the Sonys have, but it works really well on this camera with good lenses. The camera is weather resistant. Just a great all-around camera. I'm really loving it. Now, I bought this camera with the kit lens, which is a 28 to 70, 3.5 to 5.6 adjustable aperture. It has optical steady shot on it, so that combined with the camera's optical 5-axis image stabilization gives you really nice steady images. This lens is a nice lens. It has worked well for me in my introduction to this camera. I didn't really have any I had one full frame lens. I had the 85-1.8, which is an amazing lens. I've done a review on it. And then I had this one, so I figured I needed something that I could use as a walk-around lens. So I went ahead and got this with the camera, and I paid. The camera alone is $2,000, and with this lens, it's $2,200. And this lens, selling by itself, sells for about, probably about $400. I looked on Craigslist, and I realized that because you only pay an extra $200, I think a lot of people are buying this lens with this camera, and then they're selling it for $200. So if you're going to try to buy this, make sure you want this lens, because you're not going to sell it for the $400 that they're getting for the lens alone, because people just buy it with the camera, and then they say, well, I only paid an extra $200 for the camera, so I'll just sell the lens for $200. So that's just something to think about. I like the lens, but I have found that it's kind of soft in the corners. Sometimes in some images I don't notice it, in some images I do. I'm probably eventually going to sell it, but right now it's working for me, and it's helping me to get through the initial phase of switching over and buying more lenses for this category of camera. I just recently picked up a little 35mm Rokinon f2.8 lens. I really like it. It's really sharp. I'll do a review on that as well. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this really beautiful camera. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention is it has 2 card slots, so you can put 2 cards in there, and you can set it up so it'll either shoot into one card, and then once that card is full, it'll move into the other card, or you can set it up so it'll shoot JPEG into one card and RAW into another card, or you can shoot it up so that it'll record on both cards at the same time and basically give you a backup, which is what I like to do in some situations where I do a thing at my church where I do pictures at Christmas time for people, and we print them right there, and then I'll take my card back and I will erase it, because I don't want to have the people that are doing the printing kind of figure out which pictures to print. So what I'll do this year is I'll use one card for the printer and one card to just record all the images, so I can keep them and basically post them for people. So anyway, yeah, it's great. It has on the top, it has you can do your it has a dial for exposure compensation, just real cool stuff. So I highly recommend this camera. I would say, you know, if you're in the market for a camera and you got a couple $1,000s to spend, this is the one to get. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed my video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and if you want to watch more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I haven't made any videos in some time. Life just got crazy for me for a while, and today we're having a rainy day in Southern California, which we don't get very many of those, so I've decided I might as well get started back on making some videos. Thanks for watching. This is Manny. Goodbye.